Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive crystal chamber and felt very small. The walls rose high above him, like glass mountains, and strange lights moved through them like trapped lightning. Around him sat the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy, each one representing a different alien race that ruled over thousands of worlds. They looked down at him with eyes that glowed, tentacles that writhed, and faces that had no faces at all. He wore his best uniform, the dark blue one, with all the medals he had earned, fighting pirates in the outer systems. His boots were polished, so bright they reflected the alien lights, but none of that mattered now. He was just a human standing trial before creatures that thought his entire species was a mistake. Lisa Hayes stood beside him, her gray hair pulled back tight and her jaw set like stone. She had been an admiral for 20 years and had never backed down from anyone. Today would not be different, even if they were facing the rulers of half the galaxy. Behind them stood Emma Carter, the best diplomat Earth had ever sent to the stars. Her hands were folded calmly, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. The Zephyrian Prime Minister floated in a bubble of blue energy, its body like smoke given form. When it spoke, the words came through machines that turned alien thoughts into human language. The voice sounded like wind through broken glass. The human species stands accused of crimes against galactic order. The being said, and its words echoed through the chamber like thunder. You have expanded into space without permission from this council. You have built colonies on worlds that were not given to you. You have refused to change your bodies and minds to meet the standards we have set for civilized races. Jake wanted to laugh, but he kept his mouth shut. The charges were lies, but they were lies with power behind them. Humans had discovered how to travel faster than light on their own, without alien help. They had found empty worlds and built homes on them. They had said no when the council demanded they change themselves to be more like the approved species. The council did not like it when people said no. Furthermore, the Prime Minister continued, your species shows dangerous levels of independence and creativity. You refuse to follow established protocols. You question authority. You innovate without approval. These behaviors threaten the stability we have maintained for 10,000 years. Emma stepped forward, her voice calm and professional. Prime Minister, surely we can discuss terms. Humanity has contributed much to galactic civilization. Our medical advances have saved millions of lives. Our engineering has improved ship designs across dozens of species. Our art and culture have enriched countless worlds. A sound like breaking glass filled the chamber. It took Jake a moment to realize the aliens were laughing. The hegemony representative, a creature that looked like a giant purple octopus wearing a crown, waved its tentacles in amusement. Contributions. It gurgled through its translator. You barbarians have contaminated every world you touched with your chaos. You brought war games to peaceful species. You taught rebellion to races that had accepted their place. You spread the disease of ambition wherever you went. The crystalline collective speaker, a being made of living diamond, chimed in with a voice like ringing bells. Your species refuses genetic modification to remove aggressive tendencies. You will not accept neural implants to ensure compliance. You insist on maintaining your primitive emotional responses. This makes you unfit for civilized society. Jake felt his anger rising, but forced it down. Getting mad would only prove their point. Instead, he looked around the chamber and memorized every face, every detail. If this was how the galaxy wanted to play, he would remember who chose to be enemies. Colonel Ryan Brooks stood at attention near the chamber entrance, his hand resting near his sidearm out of habit. His face showed nothing, but Jake knew the man well enough to see the calculation in his eyes. Ryan was already thinking about what came next, about how to turn this disaster into something else. The Prime Minister raised what might have been a hand, and the chamber fell silent. The Galactic Council has reached its decision. The human species is hereby exiled from all Council territories. You have 30 standard days to remove all human presence from Council space. All colonies must be abandoned. All ships must return to your origin system. All humans must retreat behind the soul barrier. The words hit like physical blows. Jake felt his heart sink as he realized what this meant. Cut off from the trade routes that supplied Earth's colonies. Cut off from the resources that kept human civilization growing. Cut off from the galaxy itself. Any human presence detected beyond the Sol system after 30 days will be considered an act of war. The Prime Minister continued, Your ships will be destroyed. Your people will be captured or killed. There will be no warnings and no mercy. The alien rulers began to rise from their seats, clearly considering the matter settled. But Lisa Hayes had not moved, had not spoken. Now she stepped forward, and something in her bearing made even the alien council pause. You think this is punishment, she said quietly. You think isolation will break us. You think cutting us off from your precious council will make us weaker? The Prime Minister's energy bubble flickered with what might have been annoyance. Admiral, your species will return to its home system and remain there. In time, you will accept the wisdom of our decision. Perhaps in a few centuries, when you have evolved beyond your current limitations, we might consider readmission to civilized society. Lisa smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Prime Minister, you have no idea what you have just done. You think you know humans, but you only know the humans who played by your rules. You have never seen what we become when we stop being polite. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different, dangerous. You are us, because we refuse to change who we are, Lisa continued, because we will not accept limits, because we keep pushing forward, no matter what stands in our way. And now you think putting us in a corner will solve your problem. She looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of each alien ruler in turn. You have just freed us from every restriction you placed on human development, every rule we had to follow, every compromise we had to make, every time we had to hold back because it might upset the precious balance of your perfect order. The Admiral's voice grew softer, more deadly. In 30 days, we will be gone from your space, but we will not be gone from the galaxy. And when we return, you will discover what humanity looks like when it has nothing left to lose. The Council dismissed them without another word, but Jake noticed that none of the alien rulers seemed quite as confident as they had before. The evacuation ships came like a swarm of metal locusts, descending on human colonies across the galaxy. Alex Turner stood on the observation deck of his government building and watched another transport lift off from New California, carrying families who had called this world home for 3 generations. Children pressed their faces against the windows, watching their planet shrink away beneath them. Most of them had never seen Earth. Sir, the agricultural domes are completely dismantled, Michelle Parker reported, her tablet showing endless lists of equipment being loaded. The orbital factories have been stripped down to the hull plating. Everything useful is coming with us. Alex nodded grimly. The Council expected humans to leave everything behind, to abandon their colonies like broken toys. But they had not been specific about what condition those colonies should be left in. If the aliens wanted humans gone, they would find empty shells with nothing valuable remaining. On every human world, the same scene played out. Massive cargo haulers loaded with machinery, computers, medical equipment, and anything else that could be moved. What could not be taken was destroyed, rather than left for alien scavengers. Fusion reactors were shut down and their cores removed. Atmospheric processors were dismantled piece by piece. Even the soil from farms was loaded into containers. In the outer systems, Kevin Walsh led teams of scientists through a different kind of evacuation. For 15 years he had studied the ancient ruins scattered across Council space, mysterious structures left behind by races that had vanished long before the current alien civilizations rose to power. Now his teams worked around the clock to document everything they had found. These markings here, he explained to Amanda Foster, as they scanned another set of stone tablets. They match symbols we found on Kepler 7 and Rigel Prime, whatever civilization built these sites had technology that makes current council tech look primitive. Amanda looked worried as she helped pack the artifacts. Kevin, are you sure we should be taking these? The council considers them archaeological treasures. Kevin laughed bitterly. The council considers us dangerous barbarians who need to be exiled. I doubt they care about our archaeological ethics anymore. Besides, we found most of these sites. We did the research. We earned the right to take our discoveries with us. The truth was more complex than that. Kevin suspected the ancient ruins held secrets that the current galactic powers had missed or ignored, technologies that had been lost for thousands of years. If humanity was being forced into exile, those secrets might be their only hope of survival. Meanwhile, in space above the colonies, Admiral Lisa Hayes coordinated the military withdrawal from her flagship. The human fleet maintained perfect formation as it retreated from system after system, but every ship's computers recorded detailed scans of alien installations, defense platforms, and patrol routes. "Ma'am," reported Pete Logan from the intelligence station, "our long-range scouts have identified 17 unmapped systems beyond the galactic rim. No council presence detected in any of them." Lisa studied the star charts with interest. The council controlled most of the galaxy's prime real estate, but there were always empty systems on the edges. Rocky worlds with thin atmospheres, gas giants with no useful moons, systems too far from trade routes to be worth claiming. "Begin covert surveying missions," she ordered. "Use our fastest ships, and make sure they stay off council sensors. I want complete surveys of resources, hazards, and strategic value." "Ma'am, should I coordinate with Earth Command on this?" Lisa shook her head. "Classified for now, Pete. Not even our own people need to know yet." She understood something the council did not. They assumed humanity would retreat to Earth and stay there, trapped in their home system like animals in a cage. But humans had never been good at staying put. They had spread across their entire planet, then reached for the stars. Telling them they could not explore was like telling fire not to burn. The evacuation proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Human colonies that had taken decades to build were abandoned in days. Millions of people fled their homes with whatever they could carry. The council's deadline loomed over everything like a storm cloud, but no one panicked. Humans had survived ice ages, world wars, and the first terrible years in space. They would survive this too. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, entire factories were broken down and shipped out. The massive shipyards that built human vessels were dismantled, piece by piece. But Chief Engineer Nancy Gray made sure her teams kept the most important blueprints and manufacturing equipment. "The council thinks we are just miners and farmers, playing at being spacefaring," she told her crew as they loaded the last fusion forge. "They have no idea what we are actually capable of building." She was right. Human industry had always been hampered by council regulations, restrictions on weapons development, limits on ship design, requirements to use approved technologies, rather than experimenting with new ideas. For the first time in generations, humans would be free to build whatever they wanted. Dr. Carol Adams supervised the evacuation of research stations. Throughout human space, the council had always been nervous about human scientific curiosity, imposing endless rules about what could and could not be studied. Certain fields of research were forbidden entirely, deemed too dangerous for primitive species. "Pack everything," she ordered her teams. "Every experiment, every prototype, every theory we were told to abandon. We are starting over, and this time no one will tell us what we cannot discover." Her researchers moved with quiet excitement, despite the circumstances. For years they had watched alien species use technologies that humans were forbidden to even study. Quantum manipulation, dimensional folding, consciousness transfer, all of it labeled as beyond human understanding. Soon they would find out if that was true, in the diplomatic corps. Julie Santos worked frantically to maintain contact with non-council species. Hundreds of alien races lived under council rule, without having any voice in council decisions. Many harbored their own resentments about the way the galaxy was run. The Vorthan clans send their regrets about the exile, she reported during a secure communication with Earth. They cannot openly oppose the council, but they wish us well. It was a careful message, but Julie understood the meaning. The Vorthans remembered when they had been forced to give up their warrior traditions to appease council peacekeeping regulations. They respected humans for refusing to surrender their independence. Other messages came through neutral channels. Trade unions worried about losing human innovation. Independent colonies concerned about council expansion. Mercenary groups interested in human military techniques. The galaxy contained more dissatisfaction than the council realized. President Clark Williams coordinated the overall evacuation from Earth, but he also began planning for what came after. The council expected humanity to retreat and gradually fade away, becoming another forgotten species that had challenged galactic order and lost. How long do our food reserves last if we are completely cut off from trade? He asked during a cabinet meeting. 18 months at current population levels, his agriculture secretary replied. We can stretch it to 2 years with rationing, and, if we reduce population through voluntary colonization of marginal systems, much longer, indefinitely, if we can establish successful colonies. Williams nodded. The math was brutal, but clear. Humanity could not survive long-term, trapped in the Sol system. They needed to expand, to find new resources, to grow beyond the reach of council authority. The question was whether they could do it without being detected. As the final human ships crossed the Sol barrier, council observers monitored their passage with satisfaction. The troublesome humans had been dealt with efficiently. Their dangerous ideas about independence and self-determination would die in isolation. The galaxy would return to its proper order, but deep in human space, beyond the view of alien sensors, new ships were already being built. Ships designed for exploration, for survival, for war, if necessary. The exile had begun, but so had humanity's real expansion into the galaxy. The council had tried to cage the most restless species they had ever encountered. Soon they would learn what happened when you gave humans both motivation and freedom. 3 years had passed since the exile, and to anyone watching the Sol system's borders, humanity appeared to have accepted their fate. No human ships attempted to cross into council space. No diplomatic messages were sent requesting readmission. No trade requests went out to alien merchants. The dangerous humans seemed to have learned their lesson and retreated into sullen isolation. The Watchers were wrong. Steve Mitchell guided his deep space explorer through the asteroid field of the Kepler Expanse, a system so remote that council charts still marked it as uninhabitable. His ship moved carefully between the floating rocks, following navigation beacons that would be invisible to alien sensors. Around him, the darkness of space was broken by the lights of human industry. Our production is up 30% this quarter, Nancy Gray reported from her engineering station. The woman had aged in the 3 years since exile, her brown hair now streaked with gray, but her eyes burned with the same fierce intelligence that had built humanity's greatest machines. The new extraction methods are working better than projected, she continued. We are pulling rare metals out of asteroids that the Council's surveys dismissed as worthless rock. Steve smiled as he watched another cargo hauler emerge from the mining operation, its holds full of materials that would become ships, weapons, and tools. Kepler Expanse was one of 17 hidden systems that humanity had quietly colonized since the exile. These were not the garden worlds they had lost. These were harsh places that demanded everything humans could give. asteroid fields and gas giant moons, worlds with poisonous atmospheres and crushing gravity, systems too difficult for most species to bother with. But humans had always been good at surviving in places that tried to kill them. The colonies were connected by a network of quantum communicators that bypassed the hyperlane system entirely. Messages traveled instantly between systems without using any technology the Council could detect or intercept. Each colony specialized in different aspects of humanity's secret renaissance. In the Veil Nebula, Dr. Carol Adams led the largest scientific research program in human history. Freed from Council restrictions on dangerous research, her teams had made breakthrough after breakthrough. The hidden station was built inside a massive asteroid, its laboratories shielded from detection by the nebula's natural interference. The quantum tunneling experiments are showing real promise, she explained to General Tony Phillips during his inspection tour. The general was younger than most humans in his position, promoted rapidly when the old guard proved too attached to fighting wars the Council way. We may be able to bypass hyperlane networks entirely, Carol continued. Imagine ships that can travel anywhere in the galaxy instantly, without using the Council's transportation infrastructure. Phillips nodded approvingly. Everything about humanity's new military doctrine centered on independence. No reliance on alien technology. No following alien rules of engagement. No more fighting honorable battles against enemies who considered honor a weakness. What about the consciousness transfer project? He asked. Carol's expression grew excited. That is where things get really interesting. The ancient artifacts Kevin Walsh brought back from the ruins are teaching us things we never imagined. The technology is not just advanced, it is completely different from anything the Council uses. The artifacts had proven to be humanity's greatest treasure. The ruins that Kevin's teams had documented contained the remains of a civilization that had mastered technologies the current galactic powers had never discovered, or perhaps had discovered and then forgotten. Either way, the knowledge was revolutionizing human science. On the edge of Council space, Julie Santos operated from a neutral trading station, building relationships with species that lived under Council authority but harbored their own grievances. She worked carefully, never pushing too hard, always appearing to be just another human trader trying to make an honest living. The Vorthan clans are interested in our proposal, she reported, during a secure communication with President Clark Williams. They never forgave the Council for forcing them to abandon their military traditions. Their warriors spend their days performing ceremonial dances while their ships rust in storage, and the Free Traders Union, very interested. The Council's trade monopolies have cost them billions in lost profits. They are willing to provide supplies and intelligence in exchange for future considerations. Williams smiled from his office deep beneath Luna Base. Humanity's exile had been intended to isolate them, but it had actually freed them to build relationships the Council would never have allowed. Every day brought new allies, new resources, new possibilities for revenge. The President's cabinet met in a room that had not existed before the exile. The walls were covered with star maps, showing systems the Council had never bothered to explore. Red markers indicated human colonies. Blue markers showed potential allies. Green markers marked strategic targets for future operations. Population growth exceeds all projections, reported Health Secretary Linda Murphy. The colonial medical programs have reduced infant mortality to almost zero. Life expectancy in the new systems is actually higher than it was under Council authority, because we are not forcing ourselves to conform to alien biology, added science advisor Robert Hall. The Council always insisted that humans modify themselves to meet galactic standards. Now we can develop medicine that actually works for human physiology. Defense Secretary Paul Newman handled the most sensitive aspects of preparation. Human hackers and artificial intelligence specialists had spent 3 years infiltrating Council data networks. Every day brought new intelligence about alien military capabilities, political tensions, and strategic vulnerabilities. Their banking system has 17 major security flaws that we could exploit, he reported. Their military communication network routes through 12 hub stations that could be disabled simultaneously. Their food distribution system depends on transport schedules we have completely mapped. Admiral Hayes commanded the growing fleet from her new flagship, a ship built with technologies no council member had ever seen. The vessel could slip through space undetected, strike without warning, and vanish before enemy forces could respond. It was the first of its kind, but dozens more were under construction in hidden shipyards. The council still sees us as primitive barbarians, she told her senior officers during a strategy briefing. They think we build crude ships and fight with brute force. They have no idea what we have become. Captain Helen Torres commanded one of the new stealth destroyers, a ship that existed only in the deepest classified files. Her vessel had already conducted 17 reconnaissance missions into Council space, mapping military installations and testing alien sensor networks. Their detection systems are designed to identify known ship types using known technologies, she explained to her crew. They literally cannot see us coming, because they do not know what to look for. The destroyer fleet had been testing Council defenses for months, probing for weaknesses and gathering intelligence. Every mission revealed new vulnerabilities in the alien security apparatus. The Council's arrogance had made them sloppy. In the research laboratories, scientists worked on projects that would have been impossible under Council oversight. Weapons that could disable ships without destroying them. Communication systems that could not be jammed or intercepted. Medical technology that could repair injuries the Council considered fatal. But the most important project was also the most secret, deep in the Titan base facility. A team led by Dr. Kevin Walsh studied the ancient artifacts with equipment that pushed the boundaries of known physics. The civilization that built these ruins had mastered something that Council never discovered. He explained to the small group of researchers cleared for the highest levels of access. They learned how to manipulate the fundamental forces that hold reality together. The implications were staggering. If humans could master even a fraction of these technologies, they would not just match Council capabilities, they would surpass them entirely. How long before we have practical applications? Asked Dr. Amanda Foster, who had become Kevin's chief assistant in the years since exile. Soon, Kevin replied, his voice full of quiet confidence. Very soon. Across the galaxy, Council observers continued to monitor the Sol system and reported the same thing every day. The humans remained in their home system. No ships crossed the barrier. No attempts were made to contact alien civilizations. The exile was working perfectly. They had no idea that humanity was already everywhere, hidden in the spaces between stars, growing stronger every day, preparing for the moment when they would remind the galaxy what happened when you tried to cage the most dangerous species that had ever reached for the stars. The Council had wanted to end humanity's troublesome influence on galactic affairs. Instead, they had given humans the freedom to become something far more dangerous than they had ever been before. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn the price of exiling a species that had never learned how to surrender. The first signs were small things that security officers dismissed as routine technical failures. A Council patrol ship investigating smuggling reports found its sensor arrays malfunctioning at the worst possible moment. A communication relay in the Outer Rim experienced unexplained data corruption. A supply convoy arrived 3 days late at its destination, the captain swearing that his navigation computers had been giving false readings. Individual incidents meant nothing in a galaxy spanning millions of worlds. Equipment failed. Mistakes happened. Space was vast and full of natural phenomena that could interfere with even the most advanced technology. But after 5 years of these minor inconveniences, patterns began to emerge. In the war room of Titan base, General Rob Martinez stood before a holographic display that showed Council space in perfect detail. Every military installation, every patrol route, every communication hub was marked and analyzed. Years of covert intelligence gathering had mapped the alien empire more completely than the Council had mapped it themselves. "Gentlemen," he said to the assembled fleet commanders, "we begin Phase 3 today." The officers listened intently as Martinez outlined the plan that had been years in development. Phase 1 had been intelligence gathering, learning everything about Council capabilities while remaining completely hidden. Phase 2 had been infrastructure development, building the hidden colonies and technological base that would support human operations. Phase 3 was the return. "We are not here to fight a war in the traditional sense," Martinez explained. "We are here to create chaos, to disrupt their operations so completely that they cannot function as a unified authority. Every attack must serve multiple purposes. Gathering intelligence while causing maximum disruption with minimum risk to human personnel." Captain Helen Torres received her orders aboard the stealth destroyer, U.S. Ghostwind, one of 30 such vessels built in the hidden shipyards. Her ship could slip through Council sensor networks like smoke, appearing on no instruments until the moment it chose to strike. "Target is the Hegemony Supply Depot at Rigel 7, she briefed her crew. "Intelligence indicates minimal security and automated defense systems. We go in fast, disable their quantum communicators, download their shipping schedules, and extract before reinforcements arrive." The Ghostwind slipped through hyperspace using drives that worked on principles the Council had never discovered. No hyperlane transit signatures. No energy emissions that alien sensors could detect. The ship simply existed in one place, and then existed in another place, leaving no trace of its passage. The attack lasted 11 minutes. Council security cameras showed nothing but equipment failures and system malfunctions. The facility's quantum communicator stopped working for no apparent reason. Computer systems experienced massive data corruption. The depot's entire shipping schedule for the next 6 months was somehow transmitted to an unknown recipient by the time hegemony investigators arrived. The facility appeared completely normal, except for the missing data and broken communications. No evidence of intrusion, no signs of sabotage, just a series of impossible technical failures that left the supply chain in chaos. Similar incidents began occurring throughout Council space, with increasing frequency. Always different targets, always different methods, but always the same result. Critical systems would fail at precisely the worst moments, leaving Council forces confused and reactive. On the diplomatic front, Ambassador Richard Stone worked openly now, rallying the anti-Council coalition that had been building in secret. For years, the neutral world of Haven Station hosted a gathering that would have been impossible before humanity's exile. "The Council claims to maintain galactic peace," Stone declared to an audience of representatives from dozens of species, "but they maintain it through oppression, through forcing conformity, through punishing anyone who dares to be different." The assembled aliens nodded in agreement. Many had suffered under Council authority for generations, forced to abandon their own cultures and traditions to meet galactic standards. Humanity had become a symbol of resistance, proof that Council authority could be challenged. The Free Traders Union had joined openly, bringing with them detailed knowledge of Council commercial operations. The Vorthan clans contributed their military expertise and burning desire for revenge. Independent colonies provided bases and resources. Even species still under Council authority sent secret representatives to coordinate future support. Dr. Paul Newman coordinated the technological warfare from his mobile command center, a ship that existed in the spaces between dimensions and could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Human hackers and artificial intelligence specialists had turned Council data networks into weapons against their own creators. "Their central banking system is completely compromised," he reported to Admiral Hayes during a secure communication. "We can crash their economy with a single command." Their military databases are feeding us real-time intelligence on every ship movement and troop deployment. Hayes nodded approvingly from the bridge of the EU's Liberation, flagship of the largest fleet in human history. Around her, hundreds of ships waited in the darkness between galaxies, invisible to all sensors except their own. Not yet, she replied. We want them confused and desperate, but not so desperate that they unite against a common threat. Fear makes enemies dangerous, but panic makes them unpredictable. The Admiral understood that humanity's greatest weapon was not their advanced technology or their military strength. It was the Council's own arrogance and overconfidence. The aliens still saw humans as primitive barbarians who had been properly punished for their disobedience. They could not imagine that those same barbarians were systematically dismantling galactic civilization from within. Council emergency sessions became daily occurrences as reports flooded in from across their territory. Military commanders demanded more resources to investigate the growing security breaches. Economic advisors warned that trade disruptions were costing trillions of credits. Intelligence services insisted that some unknown enemy was conducting coordinated attacks, but they could find no evidence of who was responsible. Every incident appeared to be an accident or equipment failure. Every attack left no traces except the damage it caused. The most powerful intelligence apparatus in galactic history was being defeated by an enemy they could not see, could not track, and could not understand. The Zephyrian Prime Minister called for increased security measures and expanded surveillance of all non-council species. The hegemony demanded military action against anyone suspected of supporting terrorism. The Crystalline Collective proposed new restrictions on interstellar travel and communication. Their responses only made the situation worse. Increased security meant more systems that could be hacked and turned against their operators. Military action against innocent species drove more allies into human hands. Travel restrictions disrupted the very trade networks that held Council civilization together. Every Council response played into human strategy, creating more chaos, while providing more opportunities for covert operations. Julie Santos worked the diplomatic channels, turning each Council overreaction into recruitment propaganda. When the hegemony imposed harsh new penalties on independent traders, she was there to offer alternatives through human contacts. When the Crystalline Collective restricted scientific research, she connected frustrated scientists with human research programs. They are doing our work for us, she reported during a strategy meeting. Every time they tighten control, more species join our cause. Their own fear is destroying their authority. The campaign reached its climax when human forces demonstrated capabilities that should have been impossible. A Council fleet conducting exercises in the core worlds found their ship's computers displaying detailed analyses of their own tactical weaknesses. A diplomatic summit was interrupted when the meeting room's communication system began broadcasting embarrassing private conversations between alien leaders. Most shocking of all, the Council's most secure military installation discovered that its defense systems had been reprogrammed to target Council ships rather than intruders. The base's own weapons had been turned into a trap that could have destroyed the entire hegemony. High Command, no shots had been fired, no lives had been lost, but the message was clear to anyone with the intelligence to understand it. The invisible enemy was not just capable of striking anywhere in Council space. They were capable of taking control of Council systems and using them as weapons. Fear spread through the alien leadership like poison. If their most secure facilities could be compromised, if their most advanced defenses could be turned against, then nowhere was safe. No system could be trusted. No security measure could guarantee protection. The Council that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years suddenly found itself unable to trust its own technology. Every computer system might be compromised. Every communication might be intercepted. Every weapon might fire on the wrong target. Admiral Hayes watched the intelligence reports with satisfaction. The Council was beginning to understand what they faced. but they still did not know who they faced. They suspected terrorism, rebellion, or invasion by some unknown alien threat. They never suspected that the primitive barbarians they had exiled 5 years ago had returned to remind the galaxy of a fundamental truth about humanity. When you back humans into a corner and give them no choice but to fight, they become very good at fighting in ways you never expected. The real war was about to begin, and the Council was already losing it. The message appeared simultaneously on every screen in Council space. Military command centers, government buildings, private homes, trading stations, and even personal communicators all displayed the same image at exactly the same moment. The transmission bypassed every security system, penetrated every firewall, and ignored every attempt to block it. President Clark Williams sat calmly behind his desk, wearing the simple blue suit he preferred for important occasions. Behind him hung the flags of the Free Species Alliance, representing over 200 races that had joined humanity's cause. His voice carried the quiet confidence of a man who held all the winning cards. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, and his words reached every corner of Council space, regardless of distance or interference. 5 years ago, the Galactic Council exiled humanity for the crime of independence. They believed this would end our troublesome influence on galactic affairs, on Zephyr Prime. The Council emergency session erupted into chaos as representatives realized their most secure communication networks had been completely compromised. The human transmission was not coming through their systems. It was coming from inside their systems, as if the networks themselves had become weapons against their creators. "They were wrong," Williams continued, his tone never changing from polite diplomacy. "In exiling us, the Council freed us from their restrictions, their bureaucracy, and their endless rules designed to prevent progress. We have used this freedom." Well, the display behind Williams changed to show detailed intelligence files on every Council member. Military strength, economic vulnerabilities, political scandals, and personal secrets that should have been impossible for any outsider to obtain. The message was unmistakable. Humanity knew everything. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation as it emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Council territory. Around her, the combined fleet of the Free Species Alliance spread across the void like an ocean of stars. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, united in their determination to overthrow the authority that had oppressed them for millennia. "Council forces are moving to intercept," Captain Laura Phillips reported from her tactical station. 300 vessels led by the hegemony dreadnought Dominion. They appear to be using standard formation protocols. Hayes smiled. After years of studying Council military doctrine, she knew their capabilities better than their own commanders did. "Signal the fleet. Execute Plan 7. Remember, we are not here to conquer. We are here to liberate." The battle began with the Council forces attempting to establish the kind of organized engagement that had dominated galactic warfare for thousands of years. Ships arranged in neat formations, exchanging fire at respectable distances while following rules that had been agreed upon by civilized species. The human fleet ignored every rule. Ships that should not have existed appeared behind Council lines without warning. Weapons that bypassed known defenses tore through alien hulls like paper. Communication systems designed to coordinate galactic fleets suddenly began broadcasting surrender demands in languages the Council had never heard. But the real shock came when the Council fleet discovered that their own weapons would not fire. Every targeting system had been compromised. Every tactical computer had been reprogrammed. Every defense grid had been turned into a trap, waiting to be sprung. The engagement lasted for hours and ended with the complete surrender of Council forces. Not because they had been destroyed, but because they could no longer trust their own equipment. Every system they depended on had been turned against them by an enemy who understood their technology better than they did, across the galaxy. Similar scenes played out as the Free Species Alliance emerged from hiding. Worlds that had lived under council authority for generations rose in rebellion. Fleets that had enforced galactic law for centuries found their crews abandoning their posts. Government officials who had ruled in the council's name discovered that their own security forces had switched sides. The revolution succeeded not through military conquest, but through the simple revelation that council authority had been an illusion all along. When species realized they were free to choose their own paths, most chose freedom over the false security of alien rule. On the council homeworld, the Zephyrian Prime Minister faced the collapse of everything their civilization had built. 10,000 years of carefully maintained order were crumbling in a matter of days. Their perfect system of control had been shattered by the one species they had tried to eliminate. How? The Prime Minister asked Dr. Emma Carter, who now served as humanity's chief negotiator in the talks that would reshape galactic civilization. How did you achieve so much in so little time? Emma smiled with the same expression humans had worn when the Council first underestimated them. You exiled us because we refused to conform, because we insisted on thinking differently, because we would not accept the limitations you tried to impose. Did you really believe that forcing us into isolation would change our nature? The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of one species imposing terms on another, representatives from hundreds of worlds worked together to design a new form of government, one based on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced submission, one that celebrated diversity rather than demanding conformity. The Vorthan clans were allowed to return to their warrior traditions, but only in defense of others rather than conquest. The Free Traders Union established open commerce networks that benefited all participants equally. Independent colonies gained the right to govern themselves without interference from distant authorities. Even the former council species were offered places in the new alliance, provided they accepted that their days of ruling over others had ended. Some alien leaders refused to accept the new reality. The hegemony attempted to maintain control over their core territories through military force. The Crystalline Collective retreated to their home systems and declared independence from all galactic affairs. A few council loyalists tried to establish breakaway governments in the outer sectors, but these efforts failed because they had no popular support. After experiencing true freedom, few species were willing to return to the old system of alien dominance. The Council's authority had depended on the belief that their rule was necessary for galactic stability. Once that belief was shattered, their power evaporated. Humanity found itself in an unexpected position. They had led the revolution that freed the galaxy, but they had no desire to replace the Council as new rulers. Instead, they became something far more dangerous to future tyrants. They became the species that had proven tyranny could be overthrown. President Williams addressed the new Galactic Assembly from the same chamber where humanity had been exiled 5 years earlier. But now the room was filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy, all of them equal participants in their own government. We gather here not as subjects and rulers, but as free beings choosing to work together for mutual benefit, he declared. The age of imposed order is over. The age of chosen cooperation has begun. The applause that followed came from hundreds of different species, each celebrating in their own way. The galaxy had not been conquered. It had been liberated. In the years that followed, galactic civilization flourished in ways the old council had never imagined possible. Technology advanced rapidly when scientists were free to pursue dangerous research. Trade expanded when merchants were not restricted by monopolistic regulations. Art and culture bloomed when creativity was celebrated rather than controlled, and humanity took its place not as conquerors, but as the species that had reminded the galaxy of a truth that tyrants always forgot. That freedom, once tasted, could never be suppressed forever. That diversity was strength, not weakness. That cooperation worked better than domination. The Council had tried to exile humanity to preserve their perfect order. Instead, they had created the catalyst for their own transformation. The barbarians had returned, not to destroy civilization, but to show the galaxy what civilization could become when it was truly free. In the end, the greatest victory was not military or political. It was the simple demonstration that even the most powerful authority could be challenged by those brave enough to refuse submission. The galaxy learned that lesson well, and it would not be forgotten. The age of the Council was over. The age of freedom had begun, and somewhere in the vast expanse of space, other species facing their own tyrants looked to humanity's example and began to dream of their own liberation. The fire of human independence had spread to the stars, and it would burn forever.